for today's presentation on the right way to select digital asset management technology. A very exciting topic for us, and our lead analyst in the space, Jarrod Gingras, will be on the line with us shortly. But I want to touch on a couple key points before we get started. And one thing that's really excited for us about this topic in particular, we were just at the Henry Stewart conference in New York last month, and had the good fortune to talk with hundreds of folks there, as it was incredibly well attended. And it was really interesting for us to hear about how folks are in their DAM journey, where some folks are in their second generation, even their third generation, and then you have other people that are at the very beginning and just starting to now learn about DAM technology and how it could apply to their particular situation in their enterprise. And so wherever you are in your particular journey, we're excited to have you on today's call, as we're going to walk you through some different ways of selecting the right solution for your particular needs. A couple quick housekeeping items of note. You will be getting the slides from this presentation within the next couple days after, and all of our subscribers will also be able to access the recording of the presentation in their subscriber library. As we're going through, if you have questions, in the GoToWebinar control panel, you'll see a questions tab. Please don't hesitate to enter those as Jarrod's talking, and be able to get to those at the end of today's presentation. For those that are new to Real Story Group, welcome and thank you for joining us. We are a research firm, and fundamentally what we do is analyze the strengths and weaknesses of technology solutions based on use cases and scenarios. And so folks will subscribe to one or several different marketplaces that we cover. And beyond that, they'll actually also come to us for advisory help, whether that's as part of their research subscription, or we do take on a select number of consulting projects throughout the year. We'll come on site and be an extension of your team as you're going through a technology selection process. And we can also work with you on developing a strategic roadmap as well. And whether that's through our RealScore application and benchmarking yourselves against your industry peers, or actually to work alongside of you as you're developing a strategic roadmap for your technology infrastructure moving forward. As I mentioned, we do cover several different areas, all that are focused on digital technology. And breaking it down one step further, we have digital workplace technologies such as enterprise collaboration, portals, ECM technology, along with digital marketing, where it's web content, campaign and lead management, today's focus area, DAM technology, and actually the latest addition to our research portfolio, which is being published this month, which is CRM, or customer relationship management technology. And that's something you'd like to know about a little bit more detail. Happy to provide you that information after today's presentation. The other key point that I wanted to mention about Real Story Group is that we are completely independent. And what that means is we do no work for the vendors that we cover, nor do we have any sort of pay for play type of model within our evaluations. We won't accept money from vendors for any sort of special treatments in our reviews. What that means to you as a technology user or buyer is that you're going to get the real story when it comes to what the solutions do well, but maybe more importantly, where they could fall short for you. And so that's what we're going to really hit on as part of today's presentation, is when you're selecting the technology, what are the key areas to focus on as you're trying to really decipher what it is that's going to be the right solution for what you're trying to do. So with that, I'll hand things over to Jarrod for today's presentation.
Hey, thanks, Scott, and thank you all for taking some time out of your busy schedules to join us today. We as always, do appreciate it, and we see a lot of new folks on the line and a lot of familiar names and subscribers. And to you all, I will echo Scott's sentiments in saying thank you for being with us. So today we're going to talk about one of my favorite topics, and that's the right way to select digital asset management technology. And I don't know if some of you have seen this super graphic, as it's being called, from chiefmartech.com, and Scott Brinker, who runs that website, It's his view of the marketing technology landscape as it exists in 2017. And the other nickname they're giving this graphic is the Martech 5000, because there are 5,000 different logos on here, all competing for your attention, wanting to be part of your marketing technology stack. And this is a really important thing, and we give a lot of credit to Scott for doing this. One of the big questions coming out of this for our subscribers, though, recently is, which of these technology segments, technology areas are the most important? And my colleague Tony has been using the metaphor of the classic shopping mall to illustrate that, with vendors like this, you have your a slew of boutique stores, but with any marketing stack, you should be thinking about what are your anchor stores? What are the most important technologies that you should have in your marketing stack? We think that digital asset management is definitely one of those anchor stores in your marketing stack, as should be web content management, and we can argue whether other technologies such as marketing automation or e-commerce for some organizations, or analytics are for other organizations, but without a doubt, digital asset management should be truly top of mind to all of you, and probably why you're on the phone today. And as you think about your marketing technology stack. So this is a view of our world. It's kind of our infamous or famous subway map, which aims to show the world that we live in, the world that we're constantly evaluating. And of course, each of these subway lines, if you will, represent one of the market areas that we cover. As Scott mentioned, we'll be adding CRM to this list shortly, but today we'll be talking about the purple line, the dark purple line. I'm sorry, the light purple line, this one here, where it's focused on digital and marketing asset management technologies. What that means to us is we cover about 30 or so of the most significant in the marketplace. So as you start to think about picking the right technology, as you can imagine, you have a lot of choices. You have a lot of different vendors calling themselves digital asset management systems, in which they really might not be. Some of the other technologies I talked about offer some digital asset management services, but are not truly digital asset management systems by our definition. These are what we consider 30 or so of the most significant players in the marketplace. And as a first way of trying to make sense of this marketplace, we think we as analysts try to draw some boxes and around some of these vendors. And the way we group them here is on a spectrum of really complex to simpler use case scenarios that they're trying to solve. So there are some exceptions here. There's no perfect way to group these things, but as a first way of starting to say, let's try to compare apples to apples, this is the way we group it. We get into a lot more detail in our technology evaluations. And if you haven't seen an evaluation, I really encourage you to go to our website and download one of our samples, and you'll get a free chapter, one full evaluations of one of these vendors that we cover, and so that you can check out the depth and the framework we use to evaluate these different tools head to head. So before we can talk about the right way to select technology, we always like to start with the wrong way. And the reason for that is, we get phone calls on a daily basis from people asking for our help picking the right technology, but we hear a lot of the horror stories about how these things have gone terribly wrong in the past. And as Scott mentioned, just recently at the Henry Stewart show, we heard many horror stories of people who have tried to pick damn technology and we're now on their second try or their third try or even their fourth try at getting this right. So let's talk about some of the themes or commonalities that we've seen on why people get this wrong. The first reason is what we call blind love, and that's where in many cases we see people attend conferences or attend webinars from software vendors, and they see these really slick demos from the vendors that all look really, really good. And of course, what they see, they start to say, well, this is way better than what we have, in our incumbent technology. This has got to be a better solution. Let's just implement this. It's got to be better than what we have. And unfortunately, what we found is that that what is often shown in those demos might look really good. It might be showing all the latest and greatest features of a technology vendor's offerings, but is it really the right fit for what it is you're trying to do? And can it really help you get to where you need to go, you know, really in terms of helping your people work better and more efficiently? The second kind of traditional way that we see people selecting technology is something that we call happiness is a warm set of binders. What we mean by this is it's that classic case where you are put on a technology selection team and you go out to your organization and try to wrangle up every single last technical requirement as it comes to a future system. Then you put all of those requirements in an RFP, and then you throw it over the door to a bunch of vendors who then say, yes, 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 we can do all these things. It's a waste of time for you, and it's a waste of time for the vendors. We see this happening over and over again. I assure you there's plenty of time and need to get to that level of detail, but I strongly encourage you not to use checklists or long laundry list of checklist items as a way to select technology. Use the requirements to build your system, but don't use it as the way to select technology. And I'll talk about another way shortly, an alternative way shortly. Next way is the my cousin Vinny approach, and this is when we see many of you going to conferences or talking to your peers, you know, maybe in other companies who have similar roles as you do, where you tell them, hey, this is the problem that we're encountering with managing our assets, and they say, oh, well, we chose vendor X, Y, and Z, and it was a great fit for us. Why don't you try it? Well, what we've found is when it comes to any kind of content technology, particularly when it comes to technology that is fundamentally ingrained in how people work, it truly is not a one-size-fits-all solution set. You really need to find the solution that is fundamentally built for what it is you're trying to do. The next approach is something that we call the family car method, and I don't know about all of you, but when I was about to get my license when I was 16 years old, I was hoping that my first car would be some sports car that would turn the heads of all my friends and whatnot. But when I went to my parents and with this great idea, they said, no, we're not buying you a car, but you can drive the family car, which would happen to be a minivan at the time. And I think this is a metaphor that I like to bring up that aligns or maybe explains why some organizations end up using SharePoint or Box to manage their assets, when those are really not true digital asset management systems. Because, you know, oftentimes you say, hey, we need to get control of these assets. You go to your IT department, and the IT department says, hey, you're not getting a nice, shiny new sports car DAM system. We're going to give you what we already have. And a lot of times that's some other system that, like I said, is not truly a DAM, but probably can do some of the things you need, but not everything that you need. The next approach is the horse race approach, and if any of you are degenerates like me, you've been to a horse race, and you've been to the racetrack. You go up to the betting window, and before you get there, they hand you this racing card, which has a little bit of information, a couple sentences about the different horses in the race, and based on those couple sentences, you put your hard-earned money down on something. You might as well just pick your favorite number or your favorite name of the horse, because just doing a real cursory amount of research is not going to get you to picking the right product for you. You're guessing. We see this happening all the time, where people look for a single snapshot view of the marketplace. They look for what's in the upper right-hand quadrant of an analyst report, and they say, hey, let's just consider these and see which one shakes out for us. And that's just not enough research to be doing here. This is you need to be digging much deeper into getting the right shortlist and doing your due diligence on those shortlisted vendors. The next wrong way I'll bring up is something we call the implementer first methodology, and this is where people tend to go to a systems integrator or a digital agency and say, hey, we like working with you. Tell us which software we should bring in house. And oftentimes, unfortunately, with these partners, and you know, I can tell this tell you this because I've worked on that side of the street. I've worked as a systems integrator in the past, but as a systems integrator, even though they say they're independent, they only know a handful of technologies, because as an implementer, you can only know a handful of technologies. And this oftentimes will shoehorn people into only looking at this handful of technologies that might not be a great fit for what it is they're trying to do. And that can get people into trouble very, very quickly. And finally, there's the Google approach, where I see it all the time. People go to Google and search DAM, and they pick whatever comes up in the first page of result sets. That becomes your shortlist. Well, I can tell you that please do not do this. The only reason you should go to Google to select technology is if you're looking for an SEO vendor. Other than that, you're doing yourself a major disservice there. So ultimately, what we're telling you here with these wrong ways to pick technology is, don't let it come down to guessing. You've got to take the guessing out of this. So if we propose a different way, we recommend to our clients that you go through a process that is designed to be empirical in nature. And by that, I mean testable at every single stage, and but agile enough that it fits your enterprise. So if in the last 16 years we've been doing this, we've tried to codify the ideal steps to a vendor procurement. We call this RSVP, or Real Story Vendor Procurement. It's a set of about 20 steps over 6 different phases. Not every organization does every one of these steps, but the best selections do most of them. And so we designed this to be agile in a way that you can skip some steps. You can shortcut steps in a variety of different areas, but you should try to be thinking about the different steps along the way. Let's hone in on the key pieces of this model, though, because fundamentally what we're talking about here is you're winnowing down your choices from a logical short list of vendors, doing your due diligence, and ultimately coming up with a partner and solution that's the best fit for what it is you're trying to do. So the first step in that is coming up with the right short list. I can't tell you how many times we see people wasting their time with the wrong vendors. So we always caution you to not look at those other analysts' single snapshot views of the world, which say, you know, there are best vendors out there, and they live in the upper right-hand quadrant. That's not true. There's a better way to get the right shortlist here. And what we recommend is that you first ask yourself what it is that you're trying to do. Because what we have found in our research is that every single technology was built with fundamental use cases in mind. And what we want you to do is we want you to identify which 2 or 3 use cases you're trying to solve and find a technology that was fundamentally built for those use cases. Okay, here's the use cases that we have identified for digital asset management. This is a screenshot from our Real Quadrant shortlist generator that you can try on the realstorygroup.com site, or you can, if you're a subscriber, you know, you can play with this and get your shortlist based on your criteria. But select the different technology, the different use cases that most closely align with what it is you're trying to do, and then we recommend that you give it some weightings. And weight which is more important, which is less important. And then based on that, you should get a custom shortlist to what it is you're trying to do. Now, something new that we've added, in addition to these canonical use cases that I show on the screen here, in 2017, or late 2016, I should say, we noticed that DAM vendors in particular were starting to develop some expertise that really aligned with different verticals. And this was something new in the marketplace, which has long been more of a horizontal marketplace. But this new vertical alignment really caused us to say, we need to start treating verticals as use case scenarios in the DAM space. Now, we do this in some of our other marketplaces that we cover. Some other marketplaces that we cover still remain horizontal, but for those that do have a vertical bent, we have started to show vertical expertise as scenarios. So if you go to the Real Quadrant shortlist generator now, not only can you select which use case scenarios you align with, but also which verticals you align with. And based on that, you should get a result set that is custom to you. Now, please don't put too much stock into the vendors that are on the screen right now, because quite frankly, you don't know what criteria I put into the real quadrant generator to generate this scatter shot of vendors. Based on the different criteria, I could get a completely different real quadrant. So I would encourage you, if this is something you're interested in, try it out on the realstorygroup.com site. Or if you'd like a demo for your team, I'd be happy to get on the phone and do a private demo for your team and show you how this works, show you how the different scenarios will give you very different result sets. But fundamentally, again, what we're doing is aligning your unique needs versus the ratings that we've given these different vendors, really honing in on what they are fundamentally built for to give you a proper short list of vendors that you can then do your due diligence on. So how do we do your due diligence? Well, first of all, I want to reiterate, don't start gathering every single bit of functional requirements as a first step. Rather, I want you to hone in on what makes your situation unique. We like to say that we want you to really find the differentiating requirements in your organization. And then once you find those differentiating requirements, I want you to write a set of narrative use cases. Sometimes we call them use case journeys or customer journeys or user stories. But what we want to do here is paint a picture of what it is you're trying to do. And there's a bit of art and science to this, we always say. You want to be descriptive of what your future state should be without being overly descriptive with how to do it. So here's an example that we have used with some of our clients, where we try to describe the actual people involved. We try to describe the actual environments that you're working within. We try to describe the actual types of content that you're using. And we want to really mimic real processes as much as possible. But making these the bulk of your way you go to market, whether it's in an RFP or an RFP&D or an RFD document, we want you to use this as opposed to that esoteric just list of requirements that really are difficult for a vendor to really understand what you're trying to do. But when vendors get this type of RFP, that is the bulk of it is these use case scenarios, they've told us that, hey, they really understand what the potential customer is looking for, and it can give them a little bit of leeway to say, here's how our solution solves these challenges. So once you make those scenarios the bulk of your RFP, we recommend that you get to the all critical vendor demo phase. And the most important thing you can do at this stage in the game is to make your vendor demos as real as possible. Now, I can honestly confess that I have sat in hundreds of these type vendor demos, and the worst thing that you can do is not give the vendors any guidance and just have them come in and give the slick demos that they give to everyone else, because what you're going to see is something that always looks good. It's going to be focused on their latest and greatest updates and features, and it's probably not going to get into the core needs of your organization. So what we encourage our clients to do is to use those scenarios and tell the vendors, we want you to come in and demo our unique scenarios, and we want you to do so in this prescribed order. What that allows you as a selection team to do is to really compare apples to apples to apples across these vendor demo days, and it makes them real. So you can really start to think about what's this system going to be like in a future implementation. Some key points here might seem obvious, but you have to make sure your whole team is represented in these demos. The worst thing that can happen is when you have a key decision maker not go to all of the demos of demo week. Again, make sure that you demo your scenarios. Make sure that each vendor is demoing the same scenarios in the same order. And then don't be afraid to ask questions in these demos, especially around pricing and different modules that are included and whatnot. Oftentimes, in consulting engagements, our clients have us sit in these demos, and we're happy to do that. We're happy to ask some of the tough questions on your behalf. So the next stage in the process is what we like to call a competitive proof of concept, or sometimes known as a bake-off. And this is when you're down to ideally your final two competitors. What we want to do at this stage is mimic a real implementation project as much as possible. So I want you to go back to those scenarios and go back to your finalist vendors and say, hey, we're going to devote this period of time. Usually it's a 2 to 4 week period of time, sometimes shorter, sometimes longer, where we want you as the finalist vendors to guide us through how you would implement these scenarios. And it's really enlightening to the teams that we've worked with who have gone through this process, because not only do your teams and your actual people get to see what it's like to use this technology in a very realistic environment, you also learn a ton about what it's like to work with the vendors. You get to understand what it's like to work with their technical people. You get to understand what it's like to work with their project managers, with their support teams, and there's a lot of lessons that you learn there, because you've now gotten beyond the salesperson who was giving the demo, and now you start to make it real. And I can tell you that the most successful selection projects that we've ever seen are the ones that truly spend a lot of time in this bake-off, this head-to-head bake-off. Now, I understand that everyone doesn't have necessarily the time or resources to do this. I would highly encourage you to do it, because what's the cost of a failed implementation? But there are ways to shortcut it. Sometimes we see organizations just do it with a single finalist, and that's certainly better than nothing. But I would highly encourage you to do it with your 2 finalists, because you just learn so much around what it's like to work with the different technologies, but also what it's like to work with the different people. And then once you have gone through that, what you'll find is along the way you've gotten more comfortable. You've gotten much more comfortable with the technology. You've gotten much more comfortable with the people, and then that makes your decision all that much more easier. You've tested at every step of the way. You've tested with the scenarios, you tested via custom demos, and you tested via real custom head-to-head pilots. But remember, as you evaluate, it's all about fit. So not only is it about scenario fit, it's about technology fit. How well does this technology fit into your larger digital marketing ecosystem? Don't underestimate that partner fit, the people side of things. And of course, don't underestimate the value fit, because pricing is always a piece of this, and making sure that you have a partner that fits with the value, gives you the value you're looking for the money you're about to spend. That's equally as important as any of these other dimensions of fit. And so I'll leave you with a little bit of an illustration of how our process that I'm calling the right way to select digital asset management technology might differ from the traditional way. The traditional way has always been to spend a ton of time up front going out and getting all the requirements you can, spending a lot of time or a bit of time on RFPs and proposals and demos, and then really hitting a significant point where you begin doing your project specifications gathering, and then a big bang implementation. What I'm proposing is something a bit different, and I want you to spend a little bit less time on requirements at the outset, more time honing in on those differentiating requirements, and more time creating those scenarios that hone in on what makes you unique. Definitely spend a lot of time on your demos and your bake-off, and then what that should do is transition really nicely into getting a live pilot off the ground and transitioning nicely into a phased implementation, because you've already started to think about how can we carve off logical pieces of this big project and start to learn lessons at every step of the way. So it's a slight difference, but it's a really important difference. And like I said, the clients that we've worked with that have followed this process really feel comfortable that they've chosen the right technology and vendor partner at the end of the day. So we're just about out of time. I will share these slides with you, as Scott mentioned. If anyone has any questions, feel free to enter that into the GoToMeeting console now. But I would encourage you, if you haven't had a chance to check out the digital asset management research and you're interested in looking at digital asset management technologies, go to the website. There's a free sample. You get an entire chapter. You'll see the the way we write and the way we don't pull any punches and the way that the framework in which we evaluate these tools. I encourage you to try out the Real Quadrant Shortlist Builder. It's right on the site as well. You can try that out and get a sense of what we use as the real discriminators to coming up with the right shortlist. And then I'll also say, if any of you think you need some more help and you want us to come in and do some custom consulting or advisory, feel free to reach out to me. My email's right here. Connect with me on LinkedIn. Happy to have the conversation in any way that works for you. And I'll also volunteer if you want to do a private demo of what you get as a Real Story Group subscriber. Just let us know anytime. We're happy to do that as well. All right. So one question we've gotten. I think we were kind of running short on time, and it's a question around the bake-off. And the question is, do we have to pay for the bake-off, or can we expect vendors to do this for free? Great question, one of my favorites. I will say that in most of the projects that we've worked on, the vendors have been willing to do it for free if they know you're serious and not just wasting their time. But with that said, there's been a number of occasions where, and I think it's justified, where people have said, hey, we're going to be investing in a pretty long proof of concept or bake-off phase, then I think they're within their right to ask you for payment. You know, some of the more complex proof of concepts really fall into that category, where we've seen our clients negotiate with the vendors a kill fee. And I say negotiate because you certainly don't need to pay their rack rates that they charge for an implementation, but you can negotiate a flat fee for doing the bake-off. And what we found there is vendors are willing to take some chances in there, but you've mitigated the risk for them slightly. So you can negotiate a lower rate, and I call it a kill fee because part of that negotiation is you should only pay the loser of the bake-off. The winner should just be able to take what they've done and roll it into your larger implementation. So that's been a pretty good way of doing it that we've seen. You know, it certainly depends on a case-by-case basis. If you're doing a really complex proof of concept, then you'll probably need to go down this route of paying the vendor something. But in most cases, I'll say most vendors understand that this is a proper way of doing this, and they like it as well, because not only do you get to learn about them, they get to learn about you and refine their proposals and pricing to best meet your needs. So thank you for spending some time with me today. I hope that gives you some guidance as to the right way to select digital asset management. And again, I'm happy to have the conversation, continue the conversation in any way that works for you. Just feel free to reach out. Thank you all, and have a great rest of your day.